in that kind of dangerous area for players like Elazer. He was going to start us off in the top right-hand side of the map, of course, representing Team Liquid. Blue Zerg, once again, it is Elazer.
Bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of a French Protoss player representing the Platinum Heroes. It's ShaDoWn.
What do you feel about Hector for PvZ? This one feels like it doesn't feel like it should be big, but then it kind of comes out to be bigger than it looks, I suppose.
Oh no. I feel big about this map, mate. I definitely think yeah, especially because you have 3 bases on the high ground, so to speak, and then you can obviously slowly but steady make your way down. But what's cool about this map in this matchup is that I feel like they haven't necessarily, the pros haven't necessarily agreed upon the unanimous way of this is how you have to expand, right? Sometimes you see them go all the way towards the left, sometimes they go towards the triangle, and then they even try to get their hands on that mixed base that has some blue minerals, some gold minerals. I think overall, it's just a fun map. It's a good map. I think it's a map that the pros will like, and I think for amateurs as well, it's just fun because you can really get proper games of StarCraft on this, where it's not as brutal as, okay, one bad fight and now I cannot deal with the counterattack. More often than not, this just leads into nice macro games.
Yeah, well, that's a good way of putting it, as you see the first pro just poking around. Elazer is someone who oftentimes it feels like lately has not been the biggest fan of like trying to play the big macro games, right? Like he oftentimes is going to be hitting those timings, hitting those kind of, you know, points at which he wants to just get aggressive, and at the very least, if it is going to go longer, at least try and get into that later game with a little bit of, you know, things going his way and things being his kind of preference, so that he can keep the aggression up as the game lengthens.
Yeah. Throughout history, we've always seen Elazer as a lair tech specialist, where he's incredibly good in finding cute angles for Banelings to find damage, blow up mineral lines, but lair tech Zerg is not as strong as it was a while ago. Different things have been nerfed about it. So that kind of forces Elazer to play a bit more a late game, and I do think he is pretty good in the slow late game. I don't know how much he really loves like the fast late game where he has to move around lurkers all the time. He has impressed me in a few of the CVPs that I've seen, and I think his Viper play has made some really good progress over the years, where a long time ago it always felt that if Elazer was ever forced to play with both of the spellcasters late game, that was kind of his Achilles heel. I think he's been getting good practice with it. I'm curious to see if we're gonna see some of that, as ShaDoWn actually goes for Adept Sentry, so putting some emphasis on getting a very early Sentry. That is crazy, man. Like a 3-minute Nexus opening Adept Sentry.
Yeah, he is. He's dead to a lot of things, it feels like, but he's going to get away with it for the moment. The Sentry will provide vision further down the line with hallucination, and yeah, that third is so quick. I mean, you don't really get them faster than that.
Well, maybe it's something that he picked up on, that he knows that Elazer likes to delay link speed, because Elazer still doesn't have link speed. We're 3 minutes, 24 seconds into the game. It is not even on the production tab, and yeah, you don't really need to go for later expense if your opponent is not investing in any link speed. Like, yeah, you could be dead against a lot of things. Even 16 links running to the other side of the map would be an issue, but slow Zerglings, it should not be an issue, because then you can always get the second backup Adept, or just micro a little bit with a Stalker and Adept, and you'd be fine. So the problem with this I do see, though, is that if it comes down to greed versus greed, I feel like it doesn't really matter how greedy the Protoss tries to be. If the Zerg can just produce workers without a worry in the world, they will always crank out workers a little bit quicker than the Protoss can.
Yeah, that's very true. The Zerg is absolutely the best when you leave them kind of to do their own thing, and Elazer's doing nothing but droning here. 9 additional workers were just on the way up. He's going to be 50 plus in a few moments. This hallucination just going to fly through, not going to see very much at all, just checking the third base saturation, seeing that there is in fact a lot of drones being built. Yeah, ShaDoWn can't do anything with that apart from, you know, recognizing that he doesn't necessarily need to prepare anything defensively because he has no units to make any plays with just yet.
Is there a world where you think ShaDoWn is going to be the aggressor of a crazy amount of Stalkers with a War Prism, and then we have Stalker Sentry? Is that a direction that we're heading into?
It could be, right? Like one of those moments where you just sort of say, right, you know, quite greedy, then boom, I'm going to really kind of like liven up the attack a bit further down the line. Yeah, I could get behind that as the Adepts go for a couple more lings. And unfortunately, they are committed in here, so we're going to lose these Adepts. They get one more drone, and they will go down. I can see it, but he actually starts up charge, so now he's going to go just big on the charge lot style that obviously usually comes with the other tech units as well, because charge lots eat up the minerals. You need to build something that's going to use up all of your gas.
And I assume that that's going to be a Templar Archives, otherwise we're going to be floating way too much gas if we're going to head into 6 assimilators that quickly. Elazer is already getting a Dropper Lord. Could be used to bring some queens to the other side of the map, but we don't have Overlord speed. So I guess it's just... What is this for then, Elazer? Okay, yeah, he's putting 4 queens in the Dropper Lord, but what? He never got Overlord speed. I mean, eventually they'll get there, but at this point they may as well walk.
Yeah, they may as well walk, because this Overlord is going to take the slowest flight of all time. The Ling Roach numbers continue up, and obviously Elazer finally feeling like it's his time to get something done in this. So, begins to make the move across. We do see the Lings trying to run at the front, going to get hit by the Stalker Immortal. And now the Lings is going to back away over to that right-hand side. A few probes continue to go down, and, well, again, the slowest Dropper Lord of all time is now halfway across the map already.
Yeah, I mean, not having a shield battery here yet could actually get a little bit scary, especially if the Lings can get through, but that's a great force field, at least by ShaDoWn. The Archons need to be very careful, because Archons are great against Lings, but not if they're going to show up. Elazer is now realizing, it's like, okay, maybe I should get Overlord speed, as the Lings do manage to sneak through at least a couple of them. Now one of the gateways has gone down, so that shield battery is a little bit exposed. We're going to go for battery overcharge, but battery overcharge is not what it once upon a time used to be, and these 2 Immortals have died rather quickly. The Archons are able to get a couple of very good shots up though, and a couple of the queens have already fallen. Roaches are derping a little bit, trying to take out that cannon. Perhaps ShaDoWn with one more big warp in is actually going to be completely fine here, as that one Archon is very low on HP, and that Archon will live. ShaDoWn will just win. Perhaps Elazer fuming a little over the fact that he forgot Overlord speed. Because, yeah, that all could have arrived a little bit quicker and could have hit way harder. Because there was that army supply advantage. Yeah, there was potential by trying to hit a timing right before a lot of these buildings come online. The static defenses that was on the side of ShaDoWn. And also 2 minute supply cap, by the way, for Elazer in a 7-minute and 19-second game. Maybe a little bit of it was towards the end, but if you supply block for 2 minutes while the game was only 7 minutes and 19 seconds... Sometimes it's kind of like part of the build order, right? Where you spend every single mineral and you wait right for the Overlord. But that just still feels a little too much. Sloppy game by Elazer, no other way to put it. You cannot go for a Queen Ling Roach attack and then forget one of your crucial upgrades to get those queens to the other side of the map.
Yeah, no, they really felt like Elazer was like, right, you know what? He's been so greedy, I really can't hit him now. You know, I've been greedy myself up until this point. But Overlord speed's pretty good if you're going to drop the queens, and it just makes that a little bit of a difference, man. You just have that little bit of extra oomph, and, you know, these attacks come down to the few moments, right? A little bit here and there, and those roaches also spend an eternity hitting the cannon. If they just turned on the super battery, which they're right on top of, kill that, the cannon dies well before the cannon went down eventually anyway, so that's just a massive mistake as well from Elazer. Just bad execution across the board on that attack, and ShaDoWn takes a game with it.
Sometimes you have a game won in a best of 3 that you just want to erase from your memory, and I know it's good to learn from your mistakes, but Elazer won't have to learn too much from those mistakes. He knows where it went wrong. Game 2 will be played on site at Delta, so that's the first time we get to see this lovely, somewhat tiny green map today. In the bottom right side, taking a 1-0 lead, looking good there in the defense, good unit positioning, representing the Platinum Heroes, it's ShaDoWn.
Taking on in the top left-hand corner of the map from Team Liquid, the blue Zerg player is Elazer.
Those Archons were really shining as well, because you don't... Like, in theory, Archons are always good against Zerglings, but there are some moments where the Ling numbers are just a bit overwhelming. You don't have a Warp Prism to juggle those units around, and if an Archon gets surrounded, and you've got some ranged units, whether it's a Queen, a Roach, a Ravager, and a full Ling surround, Archons can die rather quickly. But that just didn't happen, man. Those 2 things, they went to town, they had a couple of Zealots supporting them in their mission as well, and we had 4 Queens, only really saw 2 Queens survive for a little while. Just, a lot of things went right there for ShaDoWn, who had a cool, unique opening. For Elazer, it was just an uncharacteristically sloppy game.
Yep, no, absolutely nothing like what we expected to be from Elazer. We know he can do these builds, we know he can do it to a way better level than that, and yeah, unfortunately just too many mistakes. As now, you say this map's a little bit of a smaller map, Roddy. Are we in danger of ShaDoWn trying to get set up on this, or is the base layout safe enough to hold if Elazer wants to get aggressive?
Yeah, I do think we're going to see a very different opening. I don't think that Elazer will feel comfortable delaying link speed for that long once more, because then ShaDoWn can just open up double adept, right? And we saw that those two adepts were still somewhat successful 5 minutes into the game. So I'd be surprised if we have the exact same openings from both parties, to be honest. Like going adept sentry and a 2-minute 55-second third nexus. Not something that I see him do on side Delta, but I would also love to be wrong and see ShaDoWn just pull this off over and over again, where he's like, no guys, this is actually something I like to do all the time. But based on that pro positioning, we are going to make a Stargate this time around. And don't forget, the last game we had no Stargate, which in and by itself is pretty rare, unless it is just straight up Glaives, but it wasn't that either. So anything that's not Oracles or Glaives first is already like, okay, wow. Haven't seen that a whole lot, and the build by ShaDoWn was definitely one of them.
No, that definitely was a little bit of an interesting PvZ in a matchup that usually is pretty well scripted for the first couple of minutes, as the Adept just shaded out as the two Lings walk in, so a little bit of unfortunate timing there. Probes will have to fight for themselves, and the Lings will get all the way up into the main, so this is going to be full confirmation of what's going on from Elazer as he gets all the way up and through here. Although actually he didn't see the Stargate because it's in the corner of the natural, so he misses a little bit. And that's maybe slightly concerning as the probes do clean up.
And that Overlord is so close to it, though, that if the Overlord would just move a few inches towards the right, you should be able to see it. And perhaps once the Oracle pops, you'll also be able to see it. I mean, I thought that Elazer wouldn't be comfortable going without link speed for that long on a map that is a bit smaller, where it's more likely your opponent is going to open up with 2 adepts. This time around, we do have the double adept opening. I see a lot of potential already here for ShaDoWn. Now, you know, you never know, right? Because you can think that this will go well, and then suddenly they get surrounded by drones and queens immediately, and they only end up killing 1 or 2 drones. But there's also a world where I see ShaDoWn pick up 6 or 7 drone kills very early in this game, off the back of that Oracle, off the back of these adepts that don't have to worry about links with speed. And then this can turn into a very uncomfortable game for Elazer, who sure has a lot of drones in the production tab, and at least the queen positioning is good. ShaDoWn, for a split second there, I thought he's going to donate this Oracle, and, well, was greedy, really wanted 1 more. Only gets 3. Feels like a little missed opportunity. What if you have 2 super healthy adepts on the other side of the map, and your opponent has 4 slow Zerglings? Like, why wouldn't these adepts try?
No, I'm with you, man. I feel like the Adepts were absolutely the danger there. And Elazer just gets away with it. The Adepts don't even, you know, try. You don't even have to come up with some cool micro or anything like that. As the Stalker now going to come through. Knock down the Overlord. And Elazer will get a bit of a bad supply block, actually. It's a lengthy supply block he's in. New Overlord just starting, so a little bit of a shame there.
One good thing for Elazer is that Oracle that barely survived did not survive. Apparently it turned around immediately and it just died, so I cannot blame you for missing that, because that was obviously not supposed to happen either. But yeah, now we have a couple of adepts shading to the other side of the map. Link speed is 80% done. We're gonna drop a Revelation. I think he only gets a single creep tumor there, so a little bit annoying. It's kind of an odd best of 3 so far, Waddy, not going to lie.
It really is. The Oracle trying for a little bit of drone damage here, and the Adepts just still going. They're going to try and get a Queen, forces a transfusion. Of course, we don't want to really lose the Adepts because they're going to be so much better very soon. They're on their way to that Resonating Glaives. As they back away, this Ling's chasing them. They're going to turn around. They will fight these Lings, but the Lings kind of surround, and ShaDoWn realizing he wants to be out of here. He does keep every single Adept alive, though, so take that for what you will.
How is that happening as well? Like, that's also, I feel like, not supposed to happen. Elazer needs to be a tiny bit careful that he doesn't get ultra carried away with nothing but droning, because we have no Roach War, no Bailing Nest. Did find some of these adepts that were already low on HP, and this is where it hurts so freaking much as you lost that initial Oracle. Because now the only thing that's left here for ShaDoWn is that second Oracle that activates Pulsar Beam. Elazer still building drones. Like, there is a world where ShaDoWn could have had 14 adepts right now with Glaives and 2 Oracles to go to the other side of the map and potentially straight up win. And instead, it's just looking fantastic for Elazer, because ShaDoWn needs to be so careful. As at least these adepts are gonna keep it safe. I also felt that that was the longest Resonating Glaive upgrade of all time. I feel like it was on the production tab for 2 minutes. Well, definitely didn't get unpowered or anything. Seems that we have a few too many probes. And one of the assimilators there too. Like, it looked so good for Elazer, but Elazer does still need to be a little bit careful, because at this point, Wardy, all he has is 24 Lings and 6 Queens. Now, ShaDoWn doesn't know that. ShaDoWn's probably going to play it safe, That's going to give Elazer time to get way more Lings out, but no Banelings, no Roaches. That is a serious amount of adepts to worry about.
Sends it as well, just shades onto the natural. Going to get straight into this mineral line. It's the right call, because like you say, Elazer could really do with a little bit more time. These adepts going to shade elsewhere, going to get rid of the Spore Crawler just as they sit on the natural, waiting for their shade to finish up into the main base. They're going to get a bunch of drones as they try to evacuate, and ShaDoWn is machine gunning down adepts drones right now.
And there's also 2 adepts in the bottom left side of the map. They got a few more drones there. In the end, Elazer is going to take care of these ones at least. I think the Spire got revealed. Now the extra Lings are going to try to battle the adepts in the natural. Queen count is very healthy. ShaDoWn knows about the Spire. He's going to queue up his first Phoenix. What a odd best of 3 this is so far. And these adepts are like, well, cool. At least you're still not really mining of your main base. I have killed a lot of Lings. Queens are now out of position. These adepts are going to sync up perhaps with a few more adepts. Can they sync up together? No. Good job by Elazer at least. And he's going to force out recall number 2 in a game that's not even been going on for 8 minutes. As the final adepts will try to get a few additional drones at the third base. I mean, 25 drones, I think, in total dying. 29 throughout this game. As now ShaDoWn is like, well, cool. Seems like the only thing I really need to worry about, as he's got 77 probes, Wardy, is just to get enough anti-air. So he's going to go triple Stargate with a fleet beacon. Does he have a forge? Yes. I feel like at this point, what is stopping you? You have 900 minerals. Build a couple cannons, my friend.
Yep, he's going to line them up right now, so gets a couple going. You're absolutely right. Just the only thing he has to worry about really is, oh my goodness, is the mutas, but he actually goes into carriers. He already has 3 Phoenix, so I guess, okay, this is going to work out. He's going to start building carriers, and Elazer doesn't really have any way to stop him doing that, so ShaDoWn gets a free ride to massive tech here.
Yep, there is a shield battery or a cannon at least coming online as well, and he can wipe in a couple of units to make sure that that Ling run by is not going to happen, because Lings could have potentially nibbled their way through the stalkers. And we got that very tiny Muta flock now just chilling in the bottom side of the map, but Elazer knows that ShaDoWn already has Phoenixes. I actually think you can just continue spamming Phoenix here, right? If you have such a strong economy, you got triple Stargate Phoenix, why wouldn't you just try to lift Hydras one at a time? But yeah, if you can get 3 to 6 carriers out, you should also be absolutely cooking. Seems that a couple of probes are dying as the 4 Mutas have revealed themselves, and that is a lot of damage for 4 Mutas. As all the Lings try to make their way into the natural one more time, that ain't happening, but that's a lot of damage for 4 Mutalists.
Yep, they get themselves a bunch, now going to get killed off by the carriers that show up, and Elazer, who's making Hydras, is probably like, huh, that ain't good. He's already going to, carriers. Elazer pretty much just has to send it, right? Because the longer he waits, the worse his army is going to get. If he doesn't go soon, he's just never going to overwhelm the interceptor carrier count.
Yeah, he's going to bring the queens as well, so he's in full agreement with that statement. And I think it's a pretty smart call, because he does have +2 melee. So don't forget, if the Hydras can just kind of battle the interceptors, the Lings could still potentially reign supreme on the ground, because ShaDoWn doesn't really have anything that is fantastic against +2 Lings. Like, we still have adepts with resonating glaives, and the Hydra count is absolutely exploding. We're looking at 10, 12 Hydras. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at 27 Hydras with 6 more on the way. That's going to increase our tally to 33. I think ShaDoWn should probably give up on this base, because he's got carriers in production, he's got disruptors in production. It'd be a real shame to lose this game right before you have a couple of Novas, because if ShaDoWn can just get 2 disruptors on the ground, then I don't think these carriers will ever be in trouble of losing the fight. Now, Elazer kind of tried to force this fight before all the queens are here. There is no creep either, and the Guardian Shield is absolutely fantastic. And the interceptor count should still be high enough for ShaDoWn that even if he's on a bit of trouble on the ground, I think the carriers will reign supreme.
I think so, absolutely. I think this is ShaDoWn pushing Elazer back. 24 new Hydras on production, so we are going to try and rebuild, but I mean, at that point, ShaDoWn will have the disruptors, the additional carriers, and just the extra units that should make the difference. Phoenix can lift up here if they want to. Going to lift up a couple units, get some extra kills, just guaranteed. Even pushing back some of this creep spread, which Elazer has used to cross the map so quickly. ShaDoWn, like I said, just needs to be a little careful. Actually gets 2 more queens there. The disruptor got 1, the carrier's got the other. Just doesn't need to go chasing too heavily. His army gets only better given a little bit of time.
What a bizarre game, buddy. From the beginning, the Oracle being donated, the Lings finding that much damage, finding the adepts, killing off the adepts later on, into still a relatively easy win for ShaDoWn, because he just counted with 15 adepts with glaives, and Elazer had nothing but a couple of lings and queens, and it was very hard to get him in the right spot. Elazer now realizing that he still has his Spire, so we're gonna see the ultra unusual army comp of Hydra, Ling, Corruptor, which is something I think can get the job done if you just have overwhelming numbers. Those overwhelming numbers is not something that Elazer really has going for himself. ShaDoWn is going to be able to complement his army soon with a few Archons, and I think will be nice because they're going to splash over the entire Zerg army. Kind of think Elazer is going to run out of steam, but maybe there is one more Hail Mary push where he maxes out and just goes for it. And yeah, in Elazer's perfect world, I guess he kills off like 2 carriers very quickly, and then you just take the fight and see how it goes. Finds the Phoenixes here, so that is something, but that also just means there's going to be more powerful units later on. Kills a Nexus? Alright, Waddy, what are we watching?
The potential, at least, that's for sure, is ShaDoWn just needs to decide where he wants to focus on his defense first. Will fire the warning disruptor shot down here, clips a Hydra to get rid of one. Actually going to find the Queens very much so on their own up through the center. The Corruptors are nearby, but not really getting involved. ShaDoWn's going to decide to pull back a little bit, going to make sure he fights with his static defense. Those Corruptors are going to go looking for the carriers. The first carrier goes down fairly quickly, not in range of the super battery, which isn't healing anything right now. Now we get back to that super battery. That will help a lot, but ShaDoWn lost a lot to begin with. Now he's going to start getting through the Corruptors a little bit more quickly. Disruptors still trying to do their thing. On the ground, gets a massive shot up top. But we've got a lot of Hydras here, and ShaDoWn is not clearing them out super quick. Disruptors on cooldown. Oh, the carrier's going to be enough. A couple extra join the fray, and they might make the difference.
No, that final Nova is so big, and it gets pretty much all the Hydras. Not sure if it would have been enough for Elazer otherwise, but that definitely did not help. That was a very funny fight as well, where the Queens were basically all by themselves. The Corruptors were in the back. Then we had the very early overcharge, which I didn't hate, but then there was not a single unit in range of overcharge, and carriers have so many shields that they truly benefit from being near a overcharge, especially because the corrupted numbers were not quite one-shot numbers, right? Where, you know, if there's 30 plus corruptors, then overcharge doesn't really do a whole lot for you. That was messy, that was scrappy. Elazer is up to 90 drones now, but I think it's a bit deceiving because it's 90 drones of just lair tech, and his armies is not going to scale that well. He needs to hope that ShaDoWn truly messes up in the micros. We have more Corruptors showing up, and now there's a couple of Void Rays, and Corruptors cannot ignore these Voids. But if they go for the Void Rays, then the carriers do their thing. If you ignore the Voids, well, then the Voids will do their thing. So it feels like an uphill battle for Elazer, but what a bizarre game, Waddy.
Yeah, bizarre is definitely one way to phrase it, as ShaDoWn settles down once again and is just going to rebuild. I love the Void Rays, obviously great against the Corruptors. Less Hydras on the map now, so the Void Rays really do just have a big role to play. Keep those carriers alive, and you should be pretty much golden. Yeah, man, I really felt like Elazer did not have anywhere near enough at first, then somehow he just had so much money, and he just kept coming through with so much more stuff. Now have High Templars with Storms available. Going to open with a Storm on some Corruptors, soften those up as well. Once more, that 5th base cancelled, and that's just one thing that I think ShaDoWn could really do with securing, just to guarantee he'll have the continued economy he needs to see the end of this game.
We're not gonna... he drops the Baneling Nest. I would have preferred an Infestation Pit. Like for a couple of Fungals, perhaps. I know we're not gonna get Hive anytime soon, so dreaming of Vipers is perhaps not the way to go. But I don't know if Baneling's perhaps hoping to connect with the High Templars on the ground. I don't know, that's gonna take so long though, because obviously even if your Baneling Nest comes online, you're not going to have plus Baneling speed immediately. So slow Banelings connecting with High Templars that are protected by Void Rays, Archons, Cannons, Batteries, and Carriers. That seems like a bit of a pipe dream. Elazer is now gonna build a few Spines as well, which I'm also a bit confused by, because I feel like there's not a whole lot of ground activity by ShaDoWn, but it's all good.
Yeah, a couple of Archons getting some shots off, man. The Storms have been good on the Corruptors as well, so they're already softened up. Elazer trying to play the back and forth, kind of dive in, get a pick off, back away. New Hydras, new Lings coming up. Now he is getting that Infestation Pit going, so can actually find himself a chance to move in towards Hive Tech and see if some extra tech can maybe make the difference for him. ShaDoWn's force is really getting to the point where it is just terrifying to take any sort of fight against it. So many Voids, good amount of carriers, and the ground support is finally up to scratch as well, with Storms and Archons available.
Yep, all the Disruptors did die, so there is maybe a tiny chance for the Hydras to shine, but then you still have to worry about all these Storms. It is funny that Elazer is on this many bases, has a decent amount of creep spread going for himself at this point, has some money in the bank, gonna try to get lucky one more time. It still feels like an almost impossible game to Elazer, even though the numbers are telling you a different story. It's just that this Protoss army is so much better than the Lairtech army of Elazer, as the first storm is absolutely massive on the Corruptors, the second one is not too bad, but taking out a few of these carriers, it takes a long time to rebuild carriers. I mean, Archons, High Templars, and Void Rays, that's something that Elazer can deal with. It's just that if they're protected by a whole bunch of carriers, that's where it becomes problematic.
Yep. As the overall composition that creates the issues, there's a couple of Adepts find their way up the top right, get a couple of drones. That's one thing that's worth mentioning, perhaps, is that obviously ShaDoWn's army is also, very much so just being at home. It's not done much on the map for a while. Now we're actually going to get a few drones and just slow down that Elazer eco a little bit, as he's going to find himself 11 worker kills, and now shades to another mineral line to get a couple more on top of that. It's 14 drones, so now Elazer not with as much income as he had before either.
I'm gonna get that speedy mothership. ShaDoWn. I'm surprised that we haven't seen any armor, or excuse me, plasma shields upgrade yet, because that's actually something he really enjoys. Has been doing a pretty good job with the air weapons, so had +2 very quickly. Waited a little while to start +3, maybe felt that it was too expensive and wanted to make sure that at least he would get that base at the bottom up. That base is now fully secured, as a couple of probes are going to be caught here. Elazer is walking around with this many Hydras, which normally feel super risky against potential storms coming in from different angles. He's going to have a big old recall on this Nexus. It is just a couple carriers though by itself. I'm not sure if I'm absolutely loving that, but now the rest of the units show up, so perhaps it's going to be okay. But the Corruptors turn around, realizing that they don't need to fight that army, as it is going to get on top of these carriers. And ShaDoWn is definitely making life very complicated for himself. Elazer is sticking around for a long time, and these storms is sure hurt. There's a couple of drones went down on the top side of the map as well, but that actually went really good for Elazer, and I think way better than it was supposed to go.
Yeah, ShaDoWn being split up, obviously not a great thing, and the main thing is he finally got storms on these Corruptors, but again, not all of them die, right? So there's so much damage done that isn't capitalized upon, and Elazer can just regenerate from that. That's a big deal. Now, ShaDoWn is stepping forwards towards base number 6 for himself, so getting that ready. He's, continuing to keep the harassment up now as well, getting a few drones here and there. Definitely better than just leaving Elazer to do his own thing. And we're actually going to see Elazer big round of Ultras popping out, so he can try and overwhelm on the ground. We also have the additional mothership now as well to really make this army that little bit better.
Ultras are cool, but I'm just kind of worried that he is going to take a bad fight against all the Stargate units, because the carrier count is now back up to 5. We're almost at 6. There's only 3 of them here, but the other carriers are all fully closed. Let's take a look. Yeah, they're making their way over. Elazer has a big link counterattack at the 3 o'clock base, but storms will take care of the vast majority of these links. Cannons, I think, in the end should be good enough, even though these links with +2 melee and adrenal glands so damn good against cannons. This fight went pretty good for the links. In the end, barely good enough on the side of ShaDoWn, with 1 cannon and an Archon surviving. Ultras are cool, Wardy, but I'm a bit worried that now, do we have enough anti-air right on the side of Elazer? That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, 11 Corruptors and 16 Hydras is not the overwhelming numbers we've seen before, which feels as though it was one of the big reasons why Elazer was able to take some of these better fights. Hydra Ultra is mobile though, and it will dive the right-hand side base, so this position's been taking a beat in the last few moments. ShaDoWn is going to have a couple units in the back here to try and help against it initially. The Corruptors are coming over this direction too to go for some Void Rays, but the Archons are going to catch the Corruptors. The base will be lost. Can ShaDoWn actually clean up these units? Elazer is sticking around maybe a bit too long. He's given ShaDoWn a chance to get here. Time Warp was a bit preemptive, and Elazer is going to get away without ShaDoWn really capitalizing on those units being exposed.
Maybe this is that sweet spot for Elazer, where he can just continue fighting with that 20-30 army supply advantage and take fights that continue to be slightly better than I expect them to be. It does feel that we are one disastrous fight away from this game being over immediately, and it's +3 air weapons this time around for the Void Rays, for the carriers. Now, most of the interceptors were not deployed yet, so the start of this fight is not all that sexy for ShaDoWn, as ShaDoWn is forced to run back. Lost a decent amount of units there. Carrier count back to 4. I mean, Elazer is really making magic happen with a relatively basic army. Of course, it's better now with the Ultras. They are there to tank and keep the rest of the army alive. But without spellcasters, you rarely see a Zerg. And without a crazy amount of banelings hang in there for this long. So the army movement on the side of Elazer has definitely been impressive. Will he be rewarded for it, Wadi, for all his efforts? As now we have a few spores in the front as well. If you can bring those over, there is definitely a chance.
Crazy that Elazer's traded more efficiently than ShaDoWn throughout the game, which is just again, for ZVP, not something you really kind of expect, and then especially not when it's not exactly being, like you say, the efficient units of Elazer, like the
No.
spellcasters. So the numbers there are just kind of bonkers in their own right. As now ShaDoWn taking a moment or two to clean up some creep, but he's going to have also Lings and Ultra hitting his base, and this is something he's going to have happening throughout the rest of this game.
You know what's funny is that we got a Bailing nest at a certain point, but then we never really had any Bailings. Still don't have Bailing speed either. Corruptors will find another Void Ray. Storm does do a decent job. These Corruptors need to be careful at this point as they pick up one more carrier on their way out. But that was an expensive one, Waddy. And Elazer, yeah, he's got a lot of bases, but he's not crazy rich. He's kind of rich, but definitely not crazy rich. So I don't know if that was necessarily the best trade.
Yeah, he's rich enough to rebuild that, but if he'd lost a bit more, he would have been out of cash already. Greatest Spy coming up, so we have potential to make Brood Wolves of some Corruptors. I feel like we need every Corruptor that's in the sky, though, because he still has a serious amount of air units to get through, especially with the Void Ray count being so good. The carrier numbers are still okay, 3 of them hanging around with this main army beneath that mothership.
But like 4 carriers is not as scary as 6, right? Because you can definitely see the Corruptors kind of suiciding themselves. If you take out 2 of the 4 carriers, 2 remaining carriers, they're not going to have the biggest impact ever on the fight. Seems that ShaDoWn just really wants to create an army that's going to be good against these Ultras too. It's got a bunch of Immortals, got 11 Void Rays, and that obviously is a problem for Elazer. Queens and Hydras can be very good against 11 Voids. The problem is just that will they be in the right position to actually unleash all their damage? Well, if we take a fight like this, then it's not too bad, but the storms are problematic. What a crazy game between these two, man. I don't know if they bring out the best or worst in each other, but it's definitely entertaining.
They definitely bring out something from each other. I mean, it is absolutely back and forth here on site Delta, and we do have ShaDoWn just edging forward a little bit towards those spores, towards this potential fight. Needs to be careful if he chooses to pick the fight. It's definitely one thing to watch out for, as we have Void Rays, Adepts, Immortals all gathering up, carriers up in the sky as well.
I feel like in a game like this, you always want to get a Dark Shrine, right? I feel like a Dark Shrine is basically a must on 4 bases, because there were plenty of moments where it would have been super annoying for Elazer to always worry about an Overseer, then a single Void could kill the Overseer, you can warp in a couple of defensive DPs, and ShaDoWn does take a good fight against his ground army. We have a tiny counterattack of a few Adepts, but seems like these Adepts are not going to be too successful, and after 25 minutes of a lot of battling, we've got the first spellcasters on the production tab for Elazer.
Of course, have the first time ShaDoWn is kind of moving to the halfway mark of the map in a little while, but not going to go much further than that, just clearing out some of the creep control that Elazer had set up for himself. Immediately, Elazer bounces back to the other side, but the Adept Warping is going to be enough to block it. This Nexus looks as though it will go down. There's obviously the gases here, which have about 800 gas left on them, so not the end of the world just yet. Losing some probes in the corner, as ShaDoWn and Elazer are both getting into lower numbers. And now that the spellcaster's out, fighting for ShaDoWn is going to be tough. It's funny, like the first time he finally looks into actually like fighting across the map, finally Elazer just has spellcasters for the first time ever.
Yeah. There was a moment where I thought he was going to send it and try to get on top of those Broodlords, but then he saw the Infestors and I think he got a little bit scared. Now the Voids and Archons coming in from the left side are able to get a decent amount of damage on these units. They're trying to make their way home. Elazer on 59 drones means that he can get 141 army supply. ShaDoWn now at 47 probes means he can get up to 153. I think it is really smart that he's getting at least 2 more carriers. Because when you start the fight with 4 carriers, if 2 of them die quickly, then it's only Void Rays basically what you rely on. And Voids are just so freaking vulnerable once spellcasters are out. And at this point, I would also say, Elazer, I know that we have a lot of minerals and not too much gas, as he's really going to give it for this Nexus, and he's going to get this Nexus too, but I wouldn't hate a Viper or 2 here, Waddy, just to drop a Parabomb in the middle of all these Voids. The combo of Parabomb and Fungal has rarely failed to deliver for the Zergies.
That's very true, and even if you just drop 1 Parabomb now and then Parabomb next time, eventually you start doing damage, right? Like, eventually it's going to be a Parabomb that's actually killing a bunch of Void Rays. You just slowly gain so much value, so much damage over time with that as we reestablish this forward nexus. And ShaDoWn is not rich, so it is important that he keeps these bases up. He's reestablished the base on the right-hand side now, which has, what, like 700 gas and not that many minerals, about 700 minerals as well. So yeah, that base on the right isn't super great, and eventually that means ShaDoWn's going to have to go elsewhere for his bases, which means perhaps moving further up the right-hand side. Well, the side defense he's going to lose here is basically worth as much as the base can provide for him, apart from the gas, I guess. He's going to recall with the mothership to bring units on top of these Ultras and Lings. That means that at least this
Pretty
time, ShaDoWn is going to be able to get a cleanup, but this might be go time for Elazer because now he knows the army's out of position and the Nexus is up to recall back.
One of the High Templars got surrounded by Zerglings in the middle of nowhere. Now the other 3 High Templars are in a very awkward spot as they are basically all by themselves. The Lings are completely ravaging that final base at the bottom, and the final High Templars will get surrounded as well. So only one survives, and even if ShaDoWn thought about playing a slow and passive game, at this point you gotta give up on that idea, my friend, and you just gotta go. He's down to 2 probes, Ward. He's got 2 probes and a Dream, and the funny thing is I kind of still think the Dream is alive, but obviously he really needs to go soon because every second that goes by at this point is going to be big for Elazer, and he's going to be able to accumulate a little bit of a gas bank. Maybe ShaDoWn is worried that if he attacks, he's just going to get eliminated by Ling counterattacks, right? Because we know that that's something that Dark would absolutely go for. And I think Elazer is already thinking down that line as well, where he's like, I've taken out most of your cannons, most of your batteries. I don't think there really is a whole lot to worry about. And I thought that Mothership defense earlier was cool, not just the recall, but temporarily using Cloak as well. At this point, it's going to get gnarly for ShaDoWn, and this is why I thought having just a Dark Shrine would be so nice, because then you leave a Void Ray at home, you have a couple of defensive DTs, and you'd be somewhat okay. Because ShaDoWn's army, I believe in the army, Wardy. I just don't really believe that he can take out all the bases of Elazer before Elazer will take out his remaining bases.
Yeah, base trade wise, he's definitely not in a great spot, as we are going to be seeing a couple of spores trying to get in position, now going to relocate a little bit further back. As this is what ShaDoWn is going to begin fighting on into. Drops a time warp down. Is not going to do too much there. Continues to fight on through. Again, the spores are dropping quickly. ShaDoWn needs to kill more than spores. He needs to get on top of the rest of the army. Parasitic bombs and fungal growths doing what they can. Finally, some storms coming quite deep onto the army of the Zerg, taking a lot of damage, actually. Microbial Shroud even being used off the Infest as the supply is there for Elazer. And he's going to have Corruptors able to come through now as only really carriers remain. GG says ShaDoWn, and Elazer gets it done in 29 minutes on Site Delta.
Crazy game, because we cannot forget that started off with 15 adepts killing 25 plus drones and scouting the Spire. So ShaDoWn found himself at one point up over 20 workers, and he knew about the one attack that his opponent had. So the fact that Elazer was able to just run circles around his opponent for as long as he did and find just amazing traits with Ling, Hydra, Corruptor. Like you pointed out at one point where you're like, ShaDoWn has actually lost more resources than Elazer, and we cannot emphasize enough on how crazy that is with that kind of an army comp against the Protoss who was just chilling, but Elazer just picked him apart. It really did feel that once Elazer's back was up against the wall, he stepped it up a notch and he started playing faster, and just kind of felt that he outplayed ShaDoWn for a while with an army composition where it's supposed to be almost impossible to do it with those units, but he did it.
Yeah, ShaDoWn really just felt as though he had an army at one point that was unstoppable, and then it never got the chance to just go. And even early on, I really felt as though it was like Elazer was already committed to one big Queen Hydra attack, and then he rebuilt 24 Hydras, and then just felt like he had the economy for days. He just rebuilt so many times over. As it does go to 1-1, we said this one might deliver. It absolutely is going to do so. So far, we have ourselves Elazer readying up, waiting for ShaDoWn to do the same. In Game 3 of this series, the PvZ is about to be underway.
You know what says a lot about how much better Elazer played in this game as well than in the previous game? The previous game was a 7-minute game and Elazer was supply blocked for over 2 minutes. This was a 29-minute game and Elazer was only supply blocked for 148, and a decent amount of that was because he was actually maxed out and he was just maxing out over and over again, finding moments, finding good trades. Fantastic job with the Lings. We had that one fight on the right side where you're like, oh, okay, it's a Ling counterattack, but there's a couple storms, an Archon, 2 cannons, and a battery, so I think ShaDoWn is going to be fine. And, well, he sort of was fine, but you can really see how terrifying Lings are in those scenarios because they survived for so long, took out so freaking much, and it was the beginning of the end because that opened the floodgates for more Ling run-bys, Ling counterattacks to the bottom side of the map as well. Really cool stuff by Elazer.
Yep, and with that, we head ourselves into this game number 3 and see, well, what we're going to do, because we've had 2 very different games so far. Elazer's maybe taken a little bit of an aggressive intention on both so far.
Well, it seems that they started without me, but that's okay.
Oh.
I'll just keep an eye on the preview monitor. It's fine. Yeah. Should be fine. Don't want to make them rehost.
Alright, well,
I was wondering, I was like, what?
My bad, mate.
They're taking their sweet time. But,
I forgot to get you in here. It's all good. We'll make it work. As in the bottom right, red Protoss player is going to be from the Platinum Heroes. This is ShaDoWn.
Got himself in such a good spot. But unfortunately for him, it wasn't enough against this man, who truly stepped it up when he needed it the most, representing Team Liquid, the legendary Polish Zerg Elazer.
See how things will go early as that probe comes to scout, but not going to get there in time to block the hatchery. Elazer gets that down with that early hatch, so he's going to win the war of the mind games here. And probe wanted to block. Elazer gets it down anyway.
That was a truly bizarre PvZ. The more I think about it,
yeah.
and I'm trying to digest everything that I just witnessed, I am not totally sure what I saw in the end. I know it was fun, and it was good, and it was very action-packed, and we saw a lot of battles, and that's obviously what StarCraft 2 is all about and why we love it. But truly spectacular turn of events where it felt that speed was the real difference there, right? Because there were so many moments where Hydras and Corruptors were just battling 1 or 2 Stargate units at a time. And that is really not easy to somehow force your opponent to make those mistakes, because ShaDoWn is a very experienced late game player as well, and I think he's damn good at it. Elazer just kept fighting 20, 30, max 40% of his army and didn't really commit too much in these all-out army fights that would have absolutely gone in favor of ShaDoWn. Even if ShaDoWn's micro would have been subpar, underwhelming, I think his army was so much better that he would have always wiped the floor with the army of Elazer. But Elazer just did such a good job in slowly picking his opponent apart.
I think it was very important that Elazer was just quick enough with every new attack, right? Because there was never the moment where ShaDoWn could just bunch everything and say, right, now my turn to go across and just have a good time. It just felt like ShaDoWn was constantly trying to rebuild back up to just the perfect amount before he would group up and go, and then Elazer was already back on another base, back on another fight, and just trying to make things happen as a couple links. Finally push back this probe, and straight to the Twilight Council here for ShaDoWn in Game 3.
Well, I don't hate it, since Elazer has delayed link speed for so long in Game 1 and Game 2, and the man is not incredibly well known for his Overlord scouting, so yeah, why not try to just make some magic happen with a very quick Twilight Council?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I think you can, with the way that Elazer's playing, absolutely. 100% should be something you can get done, as you see. Okay, we're going down in the back. Warp Gate is coming up here from ShaDoWn. And just having our Stalker about to pop in the next couple of moments as well. Just going to go towards that Overlord and start pushing this over to the sides. Push it to the high ground.
Yeah, we can't forget, by the way, that last game, ShaDoWn, his adepts were fantastic, but they could have been a whole lot better if he didn't lose all of them at that 3 o'clock base. First, they got caught in the center of the map, got away with a magical recall where I feel like everyone else would have lost 1, if not 2 adepts somehow. He didn't lose a single one, but then Elazer still got on top of it. ShaDoWn losing one of the 2 oracles behind the main base of Elazer was very painful, because that put Elazer initially in a fantastic position. But yeah, it turns out that even if you're in a fantastic position, you still need to respect the fact that 15 adepts with glaives could go to the other side of the map, and if the only thing that you got left are a couple of lings and queens, that can still be problematic. And obviously that can be very problematic this time around as well, especially because I think the adept numbers could even be a lot larger than they were in the previous game.
No, that's very true. It's, I think it's going to be just... I mean, I honestly thought even still the adepts were going to be somewhat like an end of the game, but didn't turn out to be the case. The Nexus is coming down as we do have the glaives about to finish up, and these adepts will start to move out. So it's 4 gate glaives, but no robo facilities, so the warp-ins have to come from the other side, and that warp-in on the low ground is interesting because now that's a slow warp-in and it gains no benefit.
No, I guess the only benefit is that it would be a bit less likely that Elazer has a random link there and scouts it immediately, but yeah, it doesn't do too much for ShaDoWn. He's going to make his way to the other side of the map. Link speed, I think, is close to finishing up if it's not done already. And we do have a Roach Warren this time around. Is that a wall off? Yes, it is a wall off. Obviously, these adepts could still let the Shade finish up. Link speed is going to finish up in 5 seconds. Queens and a lot of Lings are making their way over. These adepts could be in a bit of trouble. What is? They're going to try to make their way into that corner, but that's a lot of surface area. And it seems that this has worked out pretty good for Elazer so far.
Yep, the Link speed's just finished in time. The Roaches are coming out just about on time. And this was 3 drones only, and honestly not even that many units went down along with it. Resources lost heavily favoring the Zerg here. He only lost 14 Lings, As these Adepts now, they actually shade and immediately recall, but loses 2 of them anyways. So just things do not look good.
Felt like it was a good choice for ShaDoWn to go for a couple of Adepts with Resonating Glaze. Would have loved to see it with a Robo, or at least try it. You can actually get a pylon and a gateway up on the other side of the map, which I know it becomes a much bigger investment. But if your opponent doesn't have link speed, it doesn't seem too scary to me, right? To try to get a pylon and a gate up on the other side of the map. But this time around, that's not what ShaDoWn went for. He just wiped in some units at home. And Elazer had a picture-perfect defense, link speed kicking in the right moment. Love that temporary wall-off that he was working with. ShaDoWn cannot be too happy with where he is in this game, but he is going to go into the quick double Robo and the Robo Bay. And I don't hate that, because Elazer, I don't think, is going to rush into a Hive immediately. And yeah, I like both Disruptors, Colossus, and even Immortals to some degree, if the Zerg doesn't rush into Hive.
Yep, I'm with you, man. It's... Hive really shuts it down, but if you don't get there, then they can cause problems, as the Prism is going to be up soon and a second facility ready. These Adepts are going to try and poke forward a little bit. 10 more Roaches in production, plus 1 missiles is about halfway done. Our hatchery here, just in the front, coming up from Elazer. He can use that as a forward base to push forward from as well if he wants to go on the more aggressive side of things. But he is going to drop that infestation pit, so Hive is on the agenda, it would seem.
Yeah, I like it from Elazer. It feels like Elazer has really just stepped it up throughout the best of 3. First game was potential, forgot an upgrade, made the attack pretty ugly, and there's nothing really went his way. Second game had a great start, then was in some trouble, but just did a fantastic job in rotating his army around the map over and over again. And now in the third game, it felt that he had a really good read on everything from the beginning till the end. Even if he didn't necessarily see, confirm, check and scout everything, it just feels that the spidey senses are tingling for the man from Poland. And he's making all the right calls over the last few minutes.
Yeah, he really, really is, as we do have, again, that double Colossus production starting up. We've already got 2 out, 2 more on the way. Is there any time we hit? If the Hive doesn't come up immediately, maybe we can still get some big push going before, Vipers are out. So maybe there's an opportunity there as a couple of Adepts find just a couple of drones. The Lings are going to back it up. And we have ourselves the Roaches actually making their way for the moment onto the map as well. So they're going to try and see if there's something they can do, as maybe they'll find a 4th base cancel. ShaDoWn just now starting up his blink as he continues to progress his army composition in tech.
Force fields are a bit scary here, because I don't think the rapture count is crazy high. Colossus can be good against Roaches, but they definitely need to stay at range, and that's something that ShaDoWn needs to be very, very, very wary of. And so far he is, and he's actually keeping that Nexus alive as well. That was a lot of Zerg. And the relay's turning around, it's like, hey man, you were really supposed to cancel that thing, and I can't see if that was a cancel or a kill body, because my pixels are too... Okay, that's good. I didn't see the pop-up. My resolution is very low at this point, so I was like, okay, that would have been bad. ShaDoWn immediately adding a few Immortals to the mix after realizing that his opponent is working with a serious amount of Roaches.
Yep, there's a lot of Roaches out in the center, and we do have ourselves the Hive about to finish up, plus 2 missiles is halfway done. Temple Archives building ShaDoWn back at home, but he is going to start pushing forward. He's going to see if he can start taking some fights again with maybe some force fields to help him to pick better fights. Maybe there's something that can work from here. This Immortal shows up from the right-hand side. Roach is chasing it. Single force field goes down, and Elazer is just going to have to stay out on the bottom side, but threatening enough that ShaDoWn can't commit to one side of the map or the other. ShaDoWn has been trying to get active with some Adepts, but so far hasn't really netted himself any drone damage.
It's a little sad for Elazer that he just maxed out immediately on Roaches and Ravages, because I feel like he had some time now to potentially build a Viper or 2 if he wanted to. But because he was maxed out and he couldn't really get rid of any supply, that wasn't a thing. Now I think we have a Hydra then on the protection there, but these Roaches are very stuck, and losing a couple is okay. Now we do have the flank coming in from the left side, but it does still feel like a bit of a painful fight for Elazer at first, unless he can somehow take care of all of these Immortals. But these Immortals were having a field day for quite some time against these Roaches, and Elazer is forced to now remax on the army that I don't think he really was dreaming of remaxing on.
No, having to rebuild a whole bunch of Roaches at this point, not what he wanted to do. He wanted to maybe slow roll out some Roach Ravager and slowly replace it with better things, but now he's just going to have to immediately rebuild an army. The best thing to do that with is Roaches. And yeah, for ShaDoWn, that was a great fight. He might have lost a little bit of his tech. A couple Colossi went down, but man, those Immortals just got a chance to absolutely shine. And ShaDoWn now on the verge of seeing himself on Storm, which is great as well, because it means High Templar will be around. They can also find feedbacks on those Vipers.
Yep, and if you cannot abduct these Colossus, then the Roaches and Ravagers just going to have a very tough time getting on top of these units. Elazer is going to drop the Lurker Den as well. But yeah, that's going to take a while. You obviously need to still get your upgrades. And Elazer was kind of thinking, I'm going to max out on the Roaches and Ravagers. I'm going to try to get some value out of them. And then slowly move into a much better army comp, like you said as well. And now you're just like, oh my god, I lost the fight. He still has a decent amount of units arrived. So you hold down the Roach button. And now you're immediately maxed out again on the same army that you were prior maxed out on. And you're like, well, I'm not loving it, but how do I now buy time for myself when my opponent is even way more well set up than he was before?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a little rough. We do see some force fields here again. ShaDoWn doing those nicely to make sure he gives himself the best possible fights. Might find those more from the Ravagers. Looks like he'll get a chance to finish up. And he does take just more of a move towards this right side, taking the tower, and Elazer definitely feeling as though he's going to be feeling the heat from ShaDoWn. As you see, some Lings will counter-attack around the left side, clean up some Adepts on the Watchtower perhaps to begin with. ShaDoWn just backing it up, not too convinced that he needs to go yet. However, now the Lurker Den is really going to start getting those upgrades. Time is ticking until ShaDoWn has to deal with future tech of Elazer. Elazer might just have gotten himself where he needs to be.
I'd kind of love to just see War Prism and go with it with this army, right? Like, ShaDoWn, I know your late game is good. And we have seen it in the past, and he has definitely gotten the better of Elazer as well. But I think if you can potentially end it, if you can fight maxed out against maxed out, but you've got all the Robo units, you've got a couple of High Templars in the mix as well, you just want to go for it. As I believe an Immortal got abducted, but I saw enough feedback land as well, and I just let you do the fight, Wadi, because it's one big pixel fest for me.
Immortal's Carriers is going to come pushing through. There are Abducts coming in. There's one more Colossus left as the Viper's out of energy, so Abducts are done for the moment. And ShaDoWn is able to keep on coming up this ramp. The base is going to be evacuated. Elazer says, I cannot hold on to this position. So ShaDoWn's going to move through. Elazer rebuilding 82 Lings, but also a few Lurkers finally on the way, even if they're not fully set on their upgrades yet. I mean, the issue with the army of ShaDoWn, I guess, is that it's so Immortal heavy. 82 Lings might actually be pretty good against it. One Colossus and two Archons is all the splash we have as the last High Templar Storm should be coming down in a moment. That's the last Storm going out towards the Roaches. The Lings keep running through. Elazer, 22 Roaches now on the reproduction as well, as he just mixes and chooses what he needs for the fight. The Roach is still chasing. There's a new set of life on the Vipers. They're getting abducted off. And that will get rid of the last Colossus as well. ShaDoWn has a few tech units, but it feels like Elazer eventually is just going to overwhelm if ShaDoWn does nothing but keep on attacking.
Yep. I mean, I love the army of Archons, Immortals. I don't know how high the Lurker count currently is. I believe you see 2 on the production tab. Big Storms landing once more. I mean, Elazer had a 5k plus mineral bank a while ago, and he's definitely being forced to spend as much of that as humanly possible to just keep on remaxing. And it seems like in the end, Miko will quite literally weather the storm. And then the longer it goes, the more likely it is that we can increase that Lurker count, and we can get the adaptive talents as well. Sick hold by Elazer, because honestly it looked very scary. It was a terrifying Protoss army to deal with, especially with the units that he was working with.
Yep. No, it was one of those moments where it feels like surely there's never enough tech in the world here for Elazer. There's so many Storms, so many Immortals, but he just kept adjusting the rebuild to just kind of be what he needed next. And now he does have 11 Lurkers on the way, so he's never really gone past 3 before now, and now he's going to get 11 up at once. That's going to be a big deal breaker, and potentially this army of ShaDoWn in the top right corner is going to be cornered in. Lurker's already popping some of the Immortal barriers. The Roach is trying to contest already. Base will go down. ShaDoWn looks as though he's going to clump up to try for the recall. Lurkers are going to try and jump on top. They will get a few shots off. 2 Immortals go down as the recall goes off, and we do have an attack from Elazer on the left side, from ShaDoWn on the left side, but Elazer's already on top of it. Maybe loses a hatchery, but has only lost a handful of drones otherwise.
I thought a while ago we saw a whole bunch of spine crawlers come online, but where are they? I feel like I've barely seen them.
There's 4 just kind of out the front of this base. That's all of them.
Okay. Alright. Maybe the Zealots already made their way through a couple of them. 79 probes on the side of ShaDoWn, and I believe he had a Stargate going. Slowly he could make his way into carriers once more, but he has to worry about Lurkers first. The Storms were a little bit late there. I don't know if he had enough energy for it or not. One zoning storm is going to temporarily keep this Zerg army at bay, but there's still a whole lot of Elazer who's just making his way through, finding a couple of probes. And yeah, the Roaches and the Lings are annoying, but it's about those Lurkers. And ground armies of Protoss they kind of cut it until they just don't anymore. At a certain part, the lurker count just becomes too high, and unless you have a bunch of disruptors and a bunch of carriers, it is just going to be almost impossible to make your way through those lurkers, unless you've got the very sexy 360 surrounds. But I just don't really see a world, as this Protoss army seems like it's in a little bit of trouble as well. Elazer smells blood, knows that there is no way for these units to recall once more, and that's a lot of expensive robo units going down.
Yep, that's pretty much everything from ShaDoWn in that upper right. The lurkers are still progressing on the other side as well, so this continues to be an issue for ShaDoWn, as Elazer will continue to march out to the bottom right side of the map. And again, just attacking from two sides, essentially. Even put a Blinding Cloud down here to help him engage in more easily. Force the Immortals forward, take the cannon now. We're actually going to grab the Prism, so take away some of the micro potential. Storms don't really hit. The only thing they really got was very narrowly their own Observer, and the lurkers are just stopping reinforcing Immortals from coming across too, so that's a huge deal. These lurkers are really just holding their own over here.
Yep, even without any support. And Elazer has still plenty of bases. He can obviously rebuild this, but he's going to try to just make use of this one more time, as the lurkers were keeping ShaDoWn busy. We see Hydras, Lings, Ravagers getting on top of the Immortals on the right side of the map.